You gain happiness, you gain pleasure out of contrast. It's not necessarily the lifestyle that you're living. It's a contrast between what you have now and what you used to have. Very, very simple. Just like, hey, when things are going well, save some money because they're not going to go as well in the future. What is pernicious about social media is that we are viewing people who we think ostensibly are peers. And therefore, if that person looks like that, is driving that, smiles like that, I'm not. So I'm falling behind. And to the idea, there's a quote from Daniel Kahneman where he says, when all of your options look bad, people become very risk-seeking. Your parents worked their tails off so that their granddaughter could have the $15 Taylor Swift book. That's why they did it. Like, this is not a problem. This was the goal. The time to insulate yourself and to foster financial independence is when things are going very well. And so if you find yourself in the grip of an economic fall, whether that's personally or throughout the nation, and you say, what can I do to withstand this? There's a hard lesson of like, well, the answer is not that much at that point. I'm trying to think of of a health analogy of like, if you smoke your entire life and then you get lung cancer and then you say, what can I do to prevent this? It's like, well, that's kind of already baked in now, you know? And I think there is a lot of that, which maybe the takeaway from that is, and this gets to a much broader, like long-term philosophy. It's a really important skill in life to understand when things in your personal life are going very well and to make sure that you are like capturing that surplus and saving it for the future. Very, very simple. Just like, hey, when things are going well, save some money because they're not going to go as well in the future. Very, like that's as simple advice as you can get, but it's astounding to see how few people actually take it to heart and actually do something about it. And so this is the time when your past financial prudence really comes into play. And one way to think about this is when you save cash, like not invest in the stock market, you just save cash and put it in your checking account. It's very easy for people to look at that and say, oh, that cash is only earning, maybe 0% interest rate. It's not earning any. That's just wasted. That's just idle money. And then when the economy falls or you get laid off or there's fear of a recession, you realize that actually the return on that asset was off the charts. It wasn't the interest rate that you were earning. It was the flexibility that you got when things got tough for you. And like cash is the oxygen of independence, and independence is what you need during these financial upheaval times. So that's not the answer a lot of people want to hear. There are a lot of people who want to hear like, hey, I don't have any savings and I might be about to be laid off. What should I do? And there's no good answer to that question. There's absolutely no good answer to that question. Let me unpack it relative to what you just said, which I totally agree with in terms of like having cash sitting on the sideline and the value of that when things hit the fan. What are the odds that you and I and everybody listen to this will face at least one of the following: job loss, divorce, cancer, wayward children? Like go on down the list of like bad things. What are the odds that at least one of those will happen to you and I and everybody over the next 30 years? 100%. And for some people, they will experience every one of those. But the odds that at least one of them will happen are virtually 100%. Everyone is going to deal with something in their adult life that they did not see coming that is a major upheaval. And so, but most people don't want to admit that. They don't want to say it's too scary to admit that could happen to you. Like nobody at the altar thinks that they are going to be one of the 50% of people who get divorced. Like they're like, it's too hard to admit the actual odds of how fragile life can be. Because you need to get out of bed every morning and say, things are working and things are going to work out and I'm going to keep going. So because of that, I think people systematically underestimate how much cushion and like room for error in their finances they're going to need in their life. And that's not a financial skill. That's not something you learn at Harvard and Goldman Sachs. That's just like a very behavioral thing. So I, in my personal finances for a long time, have had way more cash as a percentage of my net worth than most financial advisors would ever recommend. And I wrote this in my book. We paid off our mortgage in 2017 when we had a very low mortgage rate. Like it's a very dumb thing to do financially because I could have invested that money and earned a higher return. But I think the key to doing well with money is not what you do on a spreadsheet. It's not like looking at those numbers and being like, oh, I can earn a marginally higher return if I put my money here and whatnot. That's not what makes any difference whatsoever. What makes a difference is that you understand your own relationship with risk and greed and fear and endurance, and that you and your spouse or your family or whatnot have similar goals of what you want to do. Like, those are all behavioral things. The ability to take a long-term mindset is not something that you could teach at Harvard Business School. It's a personality thing. And you can see this very clearly and starkly during these moments of market upheaval, where people who went to Harvard and work at Goldman Sachs, and some of our billionaire hedge fund managers, are losing their minds right now. Because you can be extremely smart and educated, but not have the kind of mental disposition to deal with these kind of things, to deal with uncertainty and fear and greed. And so the person who is not educated, does not work at Goldman Sachs, doesn't really understand the capital asset pricing model or dividend discount ratios and whatnot, doesn't understand any of that, but they have a good head on their shoulders. They keep calm during market panics. They're not greedy. They're not trying to impress strangers. They just want to use money as a tool to give themselves a better life. That person can absolutely crush it financially and just do incredibly well financially. And the counter to that is the person who got 1,600 on their SATs and went to the University of Chicago and interned at Goldman Sachs and became a hotshot hedge fund manager. That person can, and not too infrequently does, blow themselves up financially because they don't have they have all the education in the world, but they don't have the perception of greed and fear and risk that is so fundamental to doing well with money. It's always extremely complicated. It's never one cause that you can say, oh, that's happening because of this. It's always, there's so many factors going into it. But I think a big cause of it is social media. And I'll unpack what I mean by that. 30 years ago, you compared your financial well-being to your neighbors and your coworkers and maybe your siblings, and that was it. And so your sense of how well am I doing was relative to your neighbors. And so if you lived in a tiny little house, but so did your neighbors, you're like, oh, well, that's great. That's wonderful. And if you drove an old beater car, but so did all your friends, you didn't care. It's always relative to your comparison group. What social media did, and it did it very quickly and very starkly, was it increased your comparison group to a curated highlight reel of everybody's faux life, everybody's faux success. And it made it global. And so now you compare yourself to the guy on Instagram showing off his Lamborghini and his private jet and his private island and his supermodel girlfriend who has a Louis Vuitton bag and looks perfect and is all photoshopped and whatnot. That's who you're comparing yourself to. So I actually think it is easier than ever for the average median person to earn a very good income, the highest income they have ever earned in America. And at the same time, it is easier than ever to feel like that income is completely inadequate because they're comparing themselves to other people. One way to think about this, in the NFL, the minimum wage, the lowest you can earn as an NFL player is, I think, $800,000 per year. Maybe it's $700,000. It's in that neighborhood. That's the minimum wage. I guarantee you, which by any account, of course, is a shitload of money. Like that's a ton of money. I guarantee you, though, nobody in the NFL making $800,000 feels like they're crushing it because they're on a team with people who make 25 million, 37 million. So by comparison, they are absolutely broke. And on $800,000, they're driving a Chevy Tahoe. Awesome. Nice car. But that guy's driving a Bentley. So by comparison, they all feel broke. And that's an extreme example of what I think has happened across the global economy, and particularly for younger people who are the most social media influenced, which is that maybe like actually statistically, they're actually doing fine. Yes, you mentioned the price of housing is very different, but it's also that what counts as an adequate house is very different. So yeah, look, first let me say, like the inflation adjusted cost of a house absolutely has gone up very considerably. But it's also true that what people considered a great house in the 1950s was 750 square feet, and your 4 kids shared a bedroom. And you didn't have a garage. Like that was considered a great house. Whereas today, the average new house is, I think it's 2,700 square feet and has 3 bathrooms for 2 people kind of thing. That's like a very different expectation of what counts as an acceptable house. Like, so there has been, of course, price inflation. And I started asking myself a question personally that I had never really asked myself, which was, what is my spending philosophy in this house with my wife and I? Like, what's our philosophy for spending money? The answer is we really didn't have one. We've always lived well within our means and just bought kind of what we wanted, but we don't want that much. And it's never been an issue. But if you ask me what are my investing philosophies, I could talk for hours. But if you said, what are my spending philosophies? I'm like, I don't know. And what's interesting, as I started just doing this as a personal exploration, was looking into this and realizing that there are literally tens of thousands of books written on investing and how to grow your money, and almost none written on spending and how to spend money. And I think at least one of the reasons why that is because most people intuitively assume that nothing needs to be said about the topic of spending money, that the solution is obvious: just spend more, buy bigger things, nicer things, faster things, shinier things, and that's better. And I think that might be true around the edges. Like that's not false, but it's so much deeper than that. And just like my first book, The Psychology of Money, I don't tell you how to invest because I don't know you, and you and I are different. But here's a look at what happens inside people's heads when they do invest. And maybe you can try to map that to your own life. And I think that's what I tried to do with this book as well. I'm different than you are. We have different needs, different family situations. We're different in every aspect. Everybody is. And so this book does not tell you how to spend. It's a look at the psychology of what happens when you spend money. The psychology of envy, of jealousy, of contentment, of being satisfied, like those kind of topics that tend to be universal across the spectrum, regardless of who you are, where you're from, how old you are. Whenever you get, this is true for so many different aspects of life, not just money, you gain happiness, you gain pleasure out of contrast. It's not necessarily the lifestyle that you're living. It's a contrast between what you have now and what you used to have. And if you want a good example of this, find someone who has always been wealthy for their entire life. A rich kid, a trust funder kid. Do they enjoy their material goods as much as you would if you were to gain those things tomorrow? If you woke up tomorrow with the mansion and the private jet, you and I would be overwhelmed with joy for a period of time. The person who's had them forever does not. That when you don't have them, it seems like the most important thing in the world. When you have them and have had them for a long period of time, it can feel like nothing to you. It just feels like your average everyday life. To that point, the average median everyday American in the United States lives a life that is indistinguishable from magic to someone who would have been born 100 or 200 years ago. We have penicillin, we have Advil, we have ChatGPT, we have air conditioning, all these things that we have cheap travel by jet, all these things that 150 years ago people would be like, what? You guys are magicians, you guys are living like literal kings. But we don't feel like that, nor should we feel like that, because it's just what we've always had. It's always been there. For most of our life, we've always had penicillin. We've always had air conditioning. And so you appreciate the contrast in what you have. I think that's important when you are treating yourself to a nice dinner, a nice new jacket, a new vacation, whatever it might be. What feels good about it is the contrast. And it would not feel as good if you are getting those things all the time. And so I used a very extreme example. Sometimes you have to use extreme examples to make a point of this guy I know, he's very wealthy, and he has a private chef. The private chef comes to his house and makes him 3 meals a day, like Michelin star meals for his lunch and dinner. Exactly. That's my reaction too, is wow, that is so cool. If I had that, it'd be amazing. But here's the thing. He's had this for like decades. And so do you think he actually gets much pleasure out of it? It's just a meal to him. It's not wow. It's just, this is what I get every day. There's nothing unique about this. And so when what makes us happy is contrast, the reason it's wow is because that's a contrast to what you had, the breakfast that you and I just ate a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah.
And so the private chef would have been amazing. But when you have it every day, it doesn't feel like that. And so that's an extreme example, but you gain the most happiness out of contrast. That's always true.